She was just 22, soaked in rain, shivering under a broken street lamp and ready to give up on life. Everyone passed her by, blind to her pain, everyone, except a little girl in the back seat of her father's truck. That one moment changed everything. The rain poured endlessly that evening, turning the small-town streets into rivers of gray. Cars sped through puddles, spraying water across empty sidewalks. And beneath a flickering lamppost sat a young woman, her thin frame curled in on itself, knees hugged tight as if she were holding on to the last piece of herself. Her dark hair clung to her pale face, her clothes soaked, her eyes vacant like someone who had forgotten what hope even looked like. No one stopped. No one cared. But across the street, a black pickup truck idled at the red light. Inside sat Daniel, a man hardened by years of construction work and the heavy weight of raising his daughter alone. Beside him, in a booster seat, was Emily, his 7-year-old girl, whose bright blue eyes always saw what others missed. Emily pressed her tiny palm against the window and whispered, "Daddy, she's all alone." Daniel glanced at the drenched figure on the sidewalk, then looked away. Life had already taken his wife, left him juggling 2 jobs, and forced him to raise a daughter without ever showing weakness. He told himself it wasn't his responsibility. But Emily's voice grew urgent, her eyes filling with tears. "Daddy, please. She's all alone." Before we go further, if you believe in the power of kindness, second chances, and compassion, please take a moment to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to HQ Infinite Stories. Together, we can remind the world that no act of love is ever wasted. The light turned green, but Daniel couldn't press the gas. His daughter's words echoed inside his chest. Instead, he pulled over, stepped into the pouring rain, and walked toward the young woman. She was trembling, lips pale from the cold. She didn't even lift her head until Emily, clutching her tiny pink umbrella, ran over and touched her hand. Only then did the girl raise her eyes so heartbreakingly empty, yet silently begging for help. Her name was Sarah, and at just 22, she had endured more loss than most people face in a lifetime. Orphaned at 17, passed from one uncaring relative to another. Forced to survive on her own at 18. She had worked 2 jobs, fought for an education, and still, life kept knocking her down. The small apartment she once called home was gone. The diner where she worked had shut its doors. With nowhere left to turn, she had spent nights in bus stations, libraries, and now, the cold, wet streets. That night, Daniel didn't know why he offered to bring her home. Maybe it was the reflection of his own grief in her eyes. Or maybe it was the way Emily clung to Sarah's hand, refusing to let go. The first night was quiet. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, clutching a mug of hot cocoa, too ashamed to admit she hadn't eaten properly in days. Daniel made grilled cheese sandwiches, but it was Emily's chatter that filled the silence. She told Sarah about her dolls, her school, and the bedtime stories her daddy read every night. Slowly Sarah's stiff expression cracked. A faint laugh slipped through, and Daniel realized just how much she needed to feel human again. But it wasn't easy. Neighbors gossiped. Coworkers warned Daniel he was making a mistake. Even his own heart whispered doubts. Could he really carry someone else's pain when he was barely keeping himself afloat? Yet every time Sarah thought of leaving, Emily would wrap her arms around her waist and whisper, "Don't go." And Sarah's eyes, always glistening with unshed tears, made it clear no one had ever held her like that before. Sarah began helping around the house, cooking, cleaning, walking Emily to school. And soon, her presence brought warmth back into their home. Emily was happier than ever, and even Daniel noticed he was smiling more. But Sarah's past still haunted her. One night, after Emily had fallen asleep, she finally told Daniel everything: the accident that took her parents, the relatives who pushed her aside, the hunger, the loneliness, and the night before he found her. When she almost ended it all, Daniel listened, heart aching, and made a silent vow: as long as Sarah stayed under his roof, she would never feel invisible again. Life wasn't magically fixed. Bills still piled up, and Sarah wrestled with but together, they built something new. Sarah found part-time work at a bookstore, saving every dollar toward her dream of finishing college. Daniel, though still tired, began to see a brighter future. And Emily blossomed. Her wish for a big sister finally answered. Months later, at Emily's school play, Sarah sat proudly in the front row beside Daniel, cheering louder than anyone. When the teacher asked who Sarah was, Emily hugged her tightly and said, "She's family." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. That word family was something she hadn't believed in for years. But now, it was real. This wasn't a story about charity. It was about love. Daniel didn't just save Sarah. In many ways, Sarah saved him too. She filled his home with laughter again, reminded him that hearts can heal, and showed Emily that kindness has the power to change lives. To everyone watching, if this story touched your heart, please support us by liking this video, subscribing to HQ Infinite Stories, and sharing it with others. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what does kindness mean to you? Your words may inspire someone else who desperately needs hope. Sarah's story didn't end in the rain that night. It began again because a little girl refused to ignore a stranger's pain, and because a father chose compassion over convenience. Sometimes miracles don't come from grand gestures. They come from a child's tears, whispering, "Daddy, she's all alone," and from a heart that finally answers, "Not anymore."